Welcome to the Feel Your Best Formula podcast. Are you over 40 and tired of struggling with your weight, dieting, and constantly feeling like you're starting over with nutrition and fitness? Do you wish you had more energy? Do you want to lose weight and finally keep it off for good? I'm Lil, a certified nutrition coach and former registered nurse. I too have been there, and at the age of 44, I decided I was done with fad diets and chasing a lower number on the scale. I was so tired of constantly starting over and wondering why I couldn't get lasting results. I became a nutrition coach and created the Feel Your Best formula for women who want to build muscle, lose fat, and keep it off for good. If you're ready to build a better relationship with food, the scale, and your body, let's build your formula for feeling your best. If you're new here, make sure to check the episode details for the link to my newbie starter guide. You'll receive an email straight to your inbox with everything you need to start building your Feel Your Best formula. I'm so glad you're here. Now let's dive into today's episode. Hey, we are back with another episode of the Feel Your Best formula. And guess what? Can you believe it? This is episode 20. As I was planning this episode, I was thinking back to that very first time I recorded when I had no idea what I was doing, just sitting on my couch on bed rest with that broken ankle, super frustrated, wanting to do something. You know, I hate sitting around, and being sidelined was just horrible for my mental health. And I really just finally decided, you know what, I have this microphone that I had bought off Amazon for a totally different project. And I was like, I have everything I need. Let me just do this. So honestly, I feel like this podcast has been a pivotal piece of me taking a whole new direction and having the confidence to do so. So thank you to all of you who have given me the feedback. Those of you who have even picked up the telephone. I mean, the fact that some of you have picked up the telephone that know me in person and just called me to say how much you enjoyed it and how impactful it was, it means more to you. It means more to me than you have any idea. So I just am excited to keep going. And the fact that we're already at episode 20 is just really exciting. If you've been listening for a while, you know I have 2 teenage sons, and one of my boys he had no idea I started a podcast. He was asking me something like what we were doing or whatever. And I said, but I got to record an episode of my podcast. And he was like, so cool. And then he said, well, how many listeners do you have, Mom? And I told him, and I don't think it's like that great of a number. And he says, Mom, that's a lot of people. So awesome. So I think anytime your teenager thinks that something you do is cool, that really feels like a win. So whether you've listened to every single episode or if episode 20 is the first time you're tuning in, I just want to say thank you for being here. A big part of why I started this podcast is because I really wanted to just share this major shift of my own beliefs around health and wellness that had really occurred in this really organic way, just due to life circumstances. And I just thought, you know what a great topic to bring to episode 20, because letting go of old beliefs is essential. If we want to move forward, we have to create space in our hearts, in our minds, and in our life for new things. And that's the only way that we can do it, is by letting go of old things. So when it comes to our beliefs and attitudes around fitness, nutrition, and overall wellness, we all definitely have a lot of baggage from ideas are, shaped by our families. When we're kids, seeing, most likely, it could be fathers, but often mothers or aunts or grandmothers making comments about food choices or about their own bodies or how they wish they they looked a certain way, or maybe someone even said something to you. I definitely had a family member that loved to comment on my looks. And I just remember how hurtful and how embarrassing that was when they did that. So all those things, they shape our own thoughts and beliefs about how we should look and what being healthy looks like, and often is interconnected with healthy and looking a certain way, and all of these beliefs. And then we become teenagers, and of course our friends and everything that we're exposed to in the media. And then these days on social media, we're just bombarded with all this information, all these images, and we're always being influenced. And honestly, a lot, unfortunately, I would say probably a lot more of what we see is actually false information and misinformation, and just flat out wrong. Whereas we really want to make sure that we're looking at that information and asking ourselves, like, does this make sense? But a lot of that misinformation is playing into those insecurities and thoughts and beliefs that have probably plagued us since our younger years. So that's what we're going to talk about today, is letting go of these myths that, you might have believed your whole life, or maybe it's like a trend, but something that I would suggest letting go of, throwing it in the trash can so that you can move forward with a healthier mindset in 2023. I'm a big believer, in being willing to change your mind or perspective when you're faced with new information or an alternate opinion that may not be the same as your own opinion, and really trying to look at things objectively and asking yourself what actually makes sense. And I really think it's essential for personal growth. And I think a lot of our old beliefs about health and wellness and, what we should look like is really the biggest piece of what holds us back from living our best life and feeling our best. So, believe me, I'm 46 years old. I've seen countless diets, fitness trends over the years, from Slim Fast, Weight Watchers, Atkins, the Thigh Master. Do you remember the Gazelle guy on the late night infomercials riding his little gazelle machine? It's like so stupid. I don't even know how many calories you would burn using that thing. Do you remember Olean, the fake fats? Back when I was in college, that was the big thing. They were trying to make Doritos and Lay's chips with this fake fat, and it gave everybody diarrhea. And it didn't go over well. It literally would say on the package, like, causes digestive upset or something like that. Do you guys remember Tai Bo? That was like a huge thing. I knew a lot of people that really got great results with Tai Bo, because it was like, yeah, you're going to burn a lot of calories doing that workout. And I think Billy Blanks is great. Do you remember Susan Powter, the Stop the Insanity lady with the shaved head? I think she was actually probably a bit ahead of her time, because I think a lot of her stuff was just sort of common sense, like eat more veggies, eat more lean proteins. I don't think there was really anything too wacky about her advice, and she obviously got and maintained her results. I don't really know what happened to her, but this is, we could be here all day if we listed every freaking diet and fitness trend that has made its way across the timeline. And there's so many gadgets, gizmos, diets, gurus that have come and gone, and some have stuck around a little bit longer than others. Weight Watchers is still around, and I think they're just once again trying to reinvent themselves. And there's always something new popping up. But today I just thought, let's talk about some of the beliefs that I've personally let go of that have had the biggest impact on my ability to move forward and feel so much better about my relationship with food, my relationship with the scale, and overall my body, because my body is not the smallest it's ever been. And I love how I look. I love how I feel. I'm so thankful for it. And I'm really just trying to focus on like what really matters. And I think going through everything that I went through over the past 2 years, everything, my husband having a stroke, and just really that realization that without your health, you really don't have anything. And there are some factors you can control, and there are other factors that you have no control of. You could have things going on in your body. I'm not trying to freak you out, but part of why he had a stroke is because he had a abnormality that he was born with in his heart that he had no idea that even existed. And also he has an inherited cardiac arrhythmia, something that his father had and now something he has. And those two things came together and caused him to have a stroke at a young age. And it wasn't anything he did or didn't do, but stuff can happen. And I think a lot of people out there try to convince you that if you eat a certain food, if you do a certain workout, if you take a certain supplement, then you're going to be protected from those things. And it's just wrong. And there are absolutely things we can control and should control. But if you are believing that certain things are poisoning you or going to cause you to have poor health, and it isn't true, then that's creating so much stress and anxiety in your life that you just don't need to have. So I kind of went off on a tangent there, but I'm going to break this up into 2 episodes. I'm just going to cover the 3 really big ones, the big myths in this episode, and then I'll do a second episode for the rest. But number 1, the myth that certain foods are inherently bad and you should not eat them at all, and other foods are inherently good and are on this list of foods, and you should only eat the good foods. The belief is that bad foods, some people might even go so far as to say they're toxic or they're poisonous. But bottom line, I think the general feeling that I always got from, quote, bad foods are that they're foods that are going to cause you to gain weight. They're going to wreck your goals, while good foods are the only way to get skinny and get the results that you want. And then if you have one meal that includes the bad foods, you've fallen off track and you're going to completely ruin everything that you've worked for. And you guys, this was a big one for me, and maybe it is for you as well. So let's talk about it. There are many approaches to diet plans, and it's almost universal that when you start a new diet, you're given a list of foods and they say, eat these foods. And these are the only foods you can eat while you're following this diet. And if you eat foods that are not on this list, you are not going to get results. Just thinking about it and how I used to believe this, it honestly gives me anxiety, because while there's varying degrees of restriction when it comes to various diets, I had thought, I had made a good choice with the diet that I was following about 9 years ago. And it seemed to include almost all foods. And I thought, oh, this is great, because I knew I didn't want to do low carb or anything like that. I knew I wanted to eat all foods, and all food groups were included in this diet, which is wonderful. And I had friends who were doing diets where they could eat fruit, but they could only eat apples and blueberries. They weren't allowed to eat bananas or mangoes. And then I had other friends who were doing diets where they couldn't eat rice or potatoes or any carb that was white. Guys, it's just weird. So I thought the plan I was following was great. It even allowed for a glass of wine. If you wanted to swap out one of your carbs for a wine, you could totally do that. However, once you started thinking about it, this is the weird thing. I could have wine, but I couldn't have a dessert like a brownie or a cookie. If I did want to have a, quote, treat, it had to come from the cookbook that came with this diet. And there was some sort of Frankenstein brownie recipe in there, like a brownie made with chickpeas and black beans or avocado or something. Sorry, you don't deserve to be called a brownie if you don't have butter, eggs, sugar. That's a brownie. And it was like this tiny, you would go through all this work to make this recipe that would have, the beans and stuff in it. And I guess it would be brown. It would look like a brownie. But of course you could only have a teeny tiny piece of it, and it would count as an entire carb, and just so crazy. I assure you, I personally never made that recipe because when I want a brownie, I want a brownie. I don't want something that's pretending to be a brownie. But why can I have a glass of wine and that's an approved treat, but I can't have an Oreo? I can't have a scoop of ice cream. Like, make it make sense. I'm so embarrassed when I look back on it. And honestly, this diet wasn't even nearly as restrictive as other diets out there, like Whole30, Paleo, Atkins, Keto, Vegan. Like, those were all things that were really popular at the same time. But just the list of foods where I would stress out if I ate anything that was off plan or not on the list of foods that I was allowed to have, the level of anxiety that would give me, that is not healthy. And then to think at the end of, I used to weigh myself on Fridays and think at the end of the week, if the scale didn't go down, it was because I had a brownie or whatever. And to make that connection and think that the bad food, again, this is that thought process where we think foods are inherently good or inherently bad. And to think that just because you have one brownie is why the scale goes up over the course of a pound over the week is just not how it works. And it really creates this disordered thinking process. So, all right. How does this affect us when we're dieting? One, we feel that those foods we've labeled as bad makes us bad when we eat them. We think I'm bad because I ate this bad food. How many times have you said that? Oh, I've been bad today, or I've been good today. And you're basing your self-worth on the foods that you've decided or not decided to eat that day, which is just silly because you are so much more than the foods that you eat. It can be very, very hard to stick to these restrictive ways of eating day in and day out, which can lead to a whole downward spiral of like, oh, I messed up. I had the bad food. I might as well have more bad foods. And then I'll just start all over again when it's more convenient for me to have the foods that are on the approved foods list. And instead of just seeing it as one bite or one meal, we really blow things out of proportion. It becomes like this whole big thing instead of just like, oh, I had this food, so what? Let's move on. And when, think of the mental and emotional energy you have wasted on the thought process around these situations. If you've ever sat there and beaten yourself up and had this whole conversation in your head, should I have this, quote, bad food? Should I not have this food? Oh my gosh, I had the food. Oh my goodness, what am I going to do about it? Like, oh my gosh, it is just so stressful. So I know you're thinking, well, Lil, aren't some foods just bad? There's got to be foods that are bad, right? And the answer is no, not really. I mean, even the most preservative-laden snack cake, like that you would buy, at a gas station, Quickie Mart, it's not good or bad. It just contains some macro and micronutrients that may or may not be in alignment with your goals. And is that snack cake going to provide you with the nutrients your body needs to thrive? Yeah, probably not. It's going to give you some calories, which could be helpful if you need some quick energy, but it's probably not overall comprised of macronutrients and micronutrients that you want to consume on a regular basis. So do I want the vast majority of my diet to be snack cakes? Definitely not. But having a snack cake once in a while, is it going to kill you? Absolutely not. Like, maybe you have some really special memory with your grandpa who used to give you cinnamon bun snack cakes, and eating one makes you remember that and feel closer to them. Food is such a powerful way to remember things from our past. And instead of enjoying that memory, you're sitting there beating yourself up because you're eating the snack cake. Really gotta think to yourself, again, the food is neither good or bad. It is either helping me reach, nourish my body, or it's not, or maybe it's nourishing your soul in the moment. And that is totally okay. We are not robots. We have emotional connection to food. And when it's, consumed in a healthy way, and it's not something that we can't control, obviously if you cannot control and you feel yourself addicted to food, that's a whole other thing. But if you just want to have the snack cake because it reminds you of grandpa, have the freaking snack cake. And sorry. For example, a real life thing that happened to me just the other day is, I had a Burger King Whopper for lunch and a Diet Coke. I love a Diet Coke. My son and I were at an appointment, and I'd originally thought it was going to take like 30 minutes, and it was at 10:30. Well, it ended up taking 2 hours. By the time we got out of the appointment, I had to get him back to school. I have to run and get something to eat for both of us because he's missed his lunch period. And the only thing between point A and point B was a Burger King. And we stopped, and I had the Whopper. I didn't have the fries. I got a Diet Coke, and we both had a really nice time. We went through the drive-through, and then we just sat in the car and ate really quickly. And he was really happy to have the food that he got. And it was the best choice in the moment. And I really enjoyed it. And it's been a long time since I've had one. I didn't have one for years and years and years. I did not get any fries because I knew I was going to be full and satisfied based on the amount of calories and the protein and everything in the burger itself. And I ate it. I was full and satisfied. I went about the rest of my day without any guilt. And do you know how that meal would have shattered me, absolutely shattered me in the past? I would have beaten myself up for not having packed a cooler full of quote unquote healthy food that I should have been prepared. Or I would have felt ashamed while ordering it, like, oh, I should have the grilled chicken sandwich or something, and I should choose something healthier. But that's what I wanted, and I got it, and I enjoyed it. And it was so much more pleasurable because I didn't feel guilty or ashamed for eating it. And I was really full. I mean, it was a very fulfilling meal. And I had I think a salad with salmon that night for dinner. And it was great. I tracked my macros. I was within my calorie range. And you know what happened? I woke up the next morning. I got on the scale. And guess what? The scale was the exact same that it had been the day before. And that's my goal right now. I'm not trying to gain weight or lose weight. And I just kind of laughed at myself, So this is just your reminder that your overall dietary pattern is what matters most, not the things that you eat once in a while. And once you learn how to track your macros, you realize that some of those foods that you thought were just inherently terrible for you, really honestly are not that bad. And I love the fact that I didn't let my disordered thoughts around food affect what ended up being a really nice moment with my son. And I think that's really important to think about too, where if you're constantly worried about whether foods are good and bad, is it taking away from you enjoying what you're doing in the moment and who you're with in the moment? And we don't do it intentionally. Again, it is just the buildup of all those thoughts and beliefs that are ingrained in us from our life experiences. So I'm kind of hoping that after you listen to this episode, you might start thinking about things differently and realize that if you do have those thoughts, that it really does not have to be that way. And changing your perception in those situations can remove that emotional baggage and allows you to have the confidence that you are making a good choice, because when you learn how to count your macros, you're educated on what you're consuming. You're not following some arbitrary food list of what's good and what's bad. And even if you go on vacation or have a weekend where, you're enjoying more foods like that, and it's not how you typically eat, it's not going to be the end of the world. You get home, you just go back to eating how you normally eat, your normal eating pattern. And getting away from this all in or all out mentality. This restrictive eating is stupid and it causes way more harm than good. So I'm proud of myself that I was able to make an empowered decision in the moment, and it ended up being such an enjoyable moment with my son, who was really happy that he had his meal as well. So this is me telling you that it is an absolute myth that certain foods are inherently bad or inherently good. They are just simply comprised of nutrients that either are in alignment with your goals or they're not. And looking at it through that lens is a game changer. Just start viewing food that way. Like, either this food is made up of the macronutrients and the micronutrients that my body needs, or it's not. And sometimes choosing the foods that are not, that's okay too. Because at the end of the day, your body is counting those macros, whether or not you are. Your body is consuming that food and taking that protein and putting it where it needs to go. It's taking those carbohydrates and it is putting it where it needs to go. It's taking those fats and it is using it for what it needs to use it for. So whether or not you're counting macros, your body is. And there's no reason to be placing any other value on the food that you're eating. So the next time you are thinking about signing up for some diet that gives you a list of foods that you can and cannot eat, or tells you XYZ food is toxic and bad for you, please ask for a refund if you bought it, and throw it in the trash, because only foods that are bad for you are the foods that you are genuinely allergic to or have some other medical reason for why you should not consume them. Okay, that was a big one, and that was probably the most emotional one. I hope you're ready for number 2. And our second myth is we're going to talk about workouts. And for such a long time, I had it ingrained in me that I had to follow a workout calendar and work out hopefully 7 days a week, usually 6 days a week, and really push myself to follow that workout calendar to get results. And let me tell you, this was a big one for me. Following a workout calendar was my way of life for years. I would follow a workout program to a T, and I would stress if I missed a day, and I would even double up and do 2 workouts in a day if I missed one. There was times where I did that because I was so stressed about keeping up with the workout program. Big yikes. And when I think again about the amount of stress and anxiety I felt, you're trying to do something that's good for you, but then it's causing all the stress and anxiety. I really just want to tell myself to chill the F out. Like, you are worrying about things that don't matter, and start focusing on what does. So most of the programs I did were anywhere from like 30 to 45 minutes long, 5 or 6 days a week, sometimes 7 days a week. I was waking up super early to do my workouts, and to be honest, there were plenty of days where probably an extra 45 minutes of sleep would have benefited my results more than doing a workout. I've learned how important rest is, and that I'm actually able to lift more now, and I gained strength so quickly because I allow myself to rest more. So the myth that we need to work out every day or more than 3 days a week is just not true. And I'm talking about specifically weightlifting. I've spoken on it here before, but obviously getting your steps in and just being generally active every day is important. But it's really focusing on the wrong thing when you're thinking you need to be doing these intense workouts 5, 6, 7 days a week. And there's a huge difference between working out because you want to and because it fits in your schedule versus trying to force it and then feeling like a failure if you miss a workout and feeling like you need to make it up. I mean, just picture I'm sitting here with like facepalm emoji here. It's embarrassing that I thought this was a healthy approach, but it is the culture that I was in. It was the way I thought I needed to be. So here's the deal. Yes, you definitely should be aiming for, like I said, a decent activity level on a daily basis. For me, I aim for at least 5,000 to 7,000 steps a day. Some days I get as much as 10 or 12,000 steps. It just depends on the day. But I know if I'm hitting at least 5,000, I'm moving enough. getting outside for walks is a big priority for me. And sometimes that's a bigger priority than an actual workout, just depending how I feel. The more we age, the longer it takes us to recover. I've also noticed a huge improvement in my recovery time by counting my macros and eating enough protein and everything. It's really made my workout experience so much more enjoyable. So, if you're really having a lot of muscle soreness and you're really struggling, you really do want to look at what you're eating, because if you're not eating a balanced diet, that can also affect your results, especially if you're under eating, which is something I definitely did for a long time. I was under eating and also trying to work out and build muscle, and those things just do not go hand in hand. But over the past few years, I just really noticed the overall daily movement affects my physical and mental health just as much, if not more, than my workouts. It has a greater impact when I do want to have some fat loss. Getting those steps in just seems like the weight comes off just a lot easier. Don't get me wrong, I love to work out, but if you don't love to work out, you can still get great results and great benefits by just lifting weights 2, 3, or 4 days a week. You totally do not need to devote your entire life to your workout schedule and trying to work out every day. If that just isn't a reality for you, then you shouldn't be stressing yourself out trying to make that a reality. So, as you know, I was sidelined for months with my broken ankle, and I was really able to come back and gain my strength really quickly, even though I wasn't following a rigid workout calendar. I was just doing a workout, seeing how I felt. If I didn't feel up for it, I wouldn't do a workout the next day, and just really listening to my body and being flexible rather than having a really rigid schedule and feeling like that schedule was more important than how I was feeling as an individual. And certainly some people thrive with a rigid plan. And if that's you, that's great. But while I do love structure around my fitness and nutrition, I also feel it's really important to have that individualized freedom to make the choices that are best for you. And sometimes following someone else's plan is just not best for you. So if it takes you 8 weeks to finish a 6-week program, so what? That's what it took for me. It took me 8 weeks to finish a 6-week program earlier in the year. And I felt great when I finished it. I felt so proud of myself. And if you are feeling like a failure because you can't stick to someone else's plan, it's up to you to make your own plan and just have confidence that you know what's best for yourself. Again, you can do, when it comes to lifting weights, you can do 2 total body workouts a week. You can do 3 workouts a week, 1 upper body, 1 lower body, 1 total body. I'm currently doing 5 lifting workouts per week, where I do 2 upper body workouts per week, 2 lower body workouts per week, and 1 total body workout per week of purely lifting, no cardio, and just getting those steps in daily. And that is just working beautifully for me. But if I miss a workout, I don't stress. I just go ahead, pick up where I left off, do the next workout. I do like following a workout calendar, but not to the point where I'm sticking to it and feeling like I have to do it every single day as planned. I just follow the workouts in order. Okay, so this leads us to number 3, because this is a fitness related myth as well. And that is the thought that you need to do high intensity HIIT cardio to get results. And it's totally not true. I don't think I've mentioned this on here, but I only do low impact workouts. It's not because of my ankle. I actually have osteoarthritis in my lower back and pelvis. So running and jumping has been a no-go for me for about 4 years now. And I had a huge flare up and was sidelined for about 3 months 2 years ago. And I have not been able to do any high impact since then because it just leaves me in pain and inflammation, and it's awful. So I did bar blend, which is an entire low impact workout, and it gets your heart rate up and it builds strength. And I absolutely love that program, and I was so glad to have it when I did it. But I was like, oh, I should be doing HIIT workouts when I was first told, I really should not be doing anything high impact. And HIIT was all the rage. People are going to like Orange Theory and doing all these HIIT workouts, which is great. If you love them, like that's fine. But it just isn't necessary to get amazing results. I personally am in the camp that believes building muscle is like the number one thing we need to be doing for ourselves, especially as women. It just has countless health benefits when it comes to your bone density, your balance, your overall ability to just function in daily life. Being strong is so important. So again, I focus on the weightlifting for my 30-minute workouts, and then I just get my cardio in with brisk walks. And sometimes I do the bar blend workouts still. I really love that program. And getting my zone 2 cardio in, and that's walking or doing the treadmill or a rower, anything where you're getting your heart rate up into the zone 2, which is you are exerting yourself, but you're still able to have a conversation. You haven't gotten over that point where you're unable to speak. So zone 2 cardio is great. You can Google what it is. I've mentioned it on here before, but again, any movement that you're getting, anytime you are increasing that activity level, it's just so beneficial for you. And something is always better than nothing. And also paying attention to when you're doing too much and dialing it back as needed. That's really important too, and finding the sweet spot for yourself. So I won't get too into the weeds here. Go ahead and Google zone 2 cardio and read up on what it is. But literally, if you have a pair of shoes, you don't even need a pair of shoes. You can walk around and feel the benefits of zone 2 cardio. You don't need to jump around and do all kinds of crazy stuff for a HIIT workout. So again, if you love it, if you love cardio, if you love high intensity cardio workouts, that's great, but you can absolutely still lose fat, still get the body of your dreams, still be super healthy and have all the health benefits that your body needs to thrive without doing those types of workouts. Okay, that's it. That's my first 3 myths that we need to throw in the garbage in 2023. The first one being the belief that some foods are good and some foods are bad, and there's like this inherent moral value on foods. Number 2 is thinking that we're not going to get results if we don't follow a specific workout calendar. And number 3 is this idea that HIIT workouts are really the only way to burn fat and get results. So did anything I say here spark some thoughts for you? Have you ever felt needlessly shamed or negative thoughts about yourself because of any of these beliefs? If so, please try and let go of them. These types of beliefs and thoughts can really hold us back from really thriving and really finding what's going to work for us. And just remind yourself that you can create your formula for feeling your best, and it doesn't need to be as hard as you think. So that is it for this week's episode, and I will see you here next week for part 2. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode of the Feel Your Best Formula podcast. If you haven't already, make sure to check the episode details for my new listener starter guide, and any additional resources mentioned in the episode can also be found in the show notes on my website. You can always find me on Instagram at macroswithlil, and for more healthy lifestyle tips, recipes, and information on my one-to-one and group coaching services, make sure to check out my website. All the links can be found below. If you know someone else who is ready to start building their formula for feeling their best, please share the love and send them a link to the podcast. I hope you found today's episode helpful, and I'll see you back here next week for a brand new one.